So good afternoon if you are just joining us, welcome to the Governors for Schools informational webinar about becoming a school governor. I can see that people are just joining the session now, so I will give it 1, maybe 2 minutes just for people to kind of get in and everything start loading, and then we will get stuck in. So we'll get started in the next minute or so. Lovely, I can see lots more people joining us, so good afternoon if you have just arrived, and as I've said before, we'll just let a few more people join us, and then we will get started in the next minute or so. Lovely. Okie doke. Well, I do make it 12 o'clock now, so we will get stuck in. So we're delighted to be here this afternoon to share with you what school governance is all about. My name is Lauren Naden. I am a Senior Partnerships Manager at Governors for Schools, and I manage the team that works in the south of England and Wales. I'm also joined today by my colleague Enya Battersby. Enya, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Yes, hello, I'm Enya and I am a partnerships coordinator. So I work with Lauren and I work within Wales and the southwest of England. And obviously we love it and I'm very excited to be doing this. This is my first webinar, so bear with me while I get to grips with it, but I'm very excited to be helping run this.
Brilliant, thanks so much, Enya. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we do as an organisation. We'll cover also what the role of a governor actually entails. We'll also kind of discuss a little bit about the benefits of getting involved with the role and how you're going to be able to have impact through the role. And we'll also discuss at the end how you can actually get involved with the opportunity and how all of that works. Just in terms of a little bit of housekeeping. So we'll be doing a Q&A at the end, and you can pop questions in the Q&A at any point throughout the session. If we can answer it as we go, we will do, otherwise we'll get to those questions at the end. So please, do be reassured that we will answer as many questions as we have time for, which is usually all of them. We'll also, just to let you know that closed captions are available. So if you want to use those, you can switch them on if needed. I'm just going to check something in the chat. Brilliant, thank you. So let's get stuck in. So first of all, what does Governors for Schools do? Well, we've been working in England for over 20 years. We're a charity, and our aim essentially is to improve education through effective governance. We also launched our service in Wales in November 2020, which was a really exciting milestone for us as well. As an organisation, we know that having talented and committed volunteers who are kind of active in board roles can be really transformational for a school. And so we, on the one hand, will work with the schools to understand what they need. So schools will register their vacancies with us entirely for free. They'll let us know what they're looking for in terms of skills and experience if they are looking for something specific. And then we'll work with our pool of volunteers to find somebody who's a good match, who is looking for something similar, or looking for a similar school or a similar opportunity. And we'll then make introductions from there and provide ongoing support as well throughout the process. We also provide ongoing support after you've become a governor. So to help you to be as effective in the role as possible, we provide some ongoing support for you as well. And as a charity, we are looking to find really skilled volunteers to plug the gap, because there's a huge amount of governor vacancies. We're also looking to ensure that boards are representative of the wider community as well. And as a charity, we're pleased to say that we're really successful in engaging a really broad range of people to the opportunity who may not have otherwise thought about undertaking it, but who have a huge amount to offer. Just to speak very briefly about our current campaign, We're running a campaign currently called All Pupils Every Ambition, and this kind of has in mind what schools have kind of gone through over the last 2 years, and we know that schools are in need of good governors now more than ever. So as you'll all be aware, you know, the pandemic has caused a huge amount of pressure for our education system, and unfortunately we have seen a rise in the attainment gap as well. So we think this is a really important time to think about volunteering your skills to a school as a governor to help them to navigate the kind of the post-COVID landscape and navigate the challenges that have arisen or been exacerbated through the pandemic. So our current campaign is looking to find people who are passionate about those issues, passionate about education, to volunteer their skills and their time to a school. The idea is that we can help to demonstrate that governors can make a real difference through the strategic decisions they make when sitting on a board, and ultimately we want to make sure that no child is left behind as a result of the pandemic. And I am now going to hand over to Enya, who's going to talk a little bit more about, you know, what a school governor is and what a school governor does.
Thank you, Lauren, for an amazing introduction. So as Lauren said, the governor role is strategic rather than operational. So governors don't get involved with the day-to-day running of the school like teachers do. Instead, they work at a board level to support and challenge the school's leadership team, such as the head teacher and senior management, to drive school improvement, such as questioning what the school is doing to improve, looking at the budget, and asking the staff, what are you doing for equality and diversity? How are you supporting marginalised students, and just things like that. So I like to think of it as governors are a wonderful umbrella, kind of stopping the rain from hitting the school, if you will. So, you know, you've got to have a strong, sturdy structure that doesn't easily blow away in the wind. So I always like to think of that. You sit above the school at a high level just to make sure that everything is going smoothly. So, you know, it's important that a school governor is passionate about improving opportunities for all young people, and obviously, you know, to volunteer your time and skills and experience to impact the school as much as you can. Next slide, please, Lauren. Wonderful. So a lot of people undertake governor roles for a variety of reasons, but we've included some of the most common ones, such as wanting to improve the education system for the most vulnerable, so children in potentially high deprived areas or from lower economic background, children from maybe religious minority groups or anything like that, just to make sure that they're being truly represented. And that's why it's important to us that we try and have you know, a diverse board as possible, as well as to connect with the community. So a lot of people would like to give back to maybe a school that their children have gone to, or one that's in their local community that they know is struggling, that they'd like to give their skills to. As well as this, you can develop your own skills. So you can develop new skills in the area that may fall just outside of your job description. So it enables you to bring skills that you've already spent, you know, potentially years developing in your career, and be able to give that, as well as develop new ones and potentially gain confidence at a board level role. As well as this, you can obviously raise aspirations for the children in the community and ensure that you are a true advocate and a champion for them and the work that the school is doing to support them. And obviously the main reason is to just improve education for the next generation and make sure that, you know, like Lauren said, no child is left behind. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So obviously these are some of the main adjectives, I would say, that we look for in governors. So it's important that you are committed and you are aware of the time commitment, and that you aren't obviously overloading yourself with work, family life, everything like that. As you may be able to see from our website, the average governor spends between 6 and 7 hours per month on the role. And it's important to make sure that you're committed to obviously looking through documents, reports, budgets, as well as attending the meetings. Yes, and then as well as this, integrity, making sure that you are questioning the decisions of the school, questioning the use of the budget, you know, potential lack of progress in recent years, a poor Ofsted report, for example, and questioning what's been happening. Critical thinking and using your specialist knowledge as well to ensure that the school is progressing. As well as this, Obviously, as I said before, you've got to be a champion for the school, and you've got to be a champion for both the children and the staff. So obviously you can look at how the teachers are performing, whether they're suffering from burnout, especially in a post-COVID world. So being a champion for everyone in the school, as well as the other governors, and supporting them and making sure that you are a collective that's working together, united. You've got to be objective, obviously, and it's important that you can remain level-headed and make sure that everything that you're portraying to the board and to the head teacher and things like that is obviously objective, and you've got evidence, and you can look at budgets and previous reports to see performance levels. And accountability, ensuring that you are holding senior management accountable for potential failings of the school, just to make sure that you are being a champion for those students and making sure that you're voicing matters that are concerning, and obviously to challenge the school and make sure that they are performing at the highest level that that they can, and obviously support them as well, and be that skilled professional that that can give them the support and guidance they need to improve and move forward. Next slide, please, Lauren. Wonderful. So there is a continued need for volunteers, as especially post-COVID vacancies continue to be registered, especially primary school vacancies as well. And governors are one of the largest volunteer groups in England and Wales. We have thousands of vacancies registered in England and Wales, and some areas are much more in need than others, especially areas which potentially have really high deprivation levels and students who have particular needs that need to be addressed. So as you can see from the pie chart, you can see that most of the vacancies we have are in the primary phase of education. And I think this is obviously based on the fact that when you look across the country, we primarily have a lot of primary schools compared to secondaries. So with this in mind, we'd really like to encourage you to potentially consider primary schools. A lot of people obviously believe that their skills and knowledge bases would potentially help older students, so teenagers and college students, but we believe that actually being able to encourage and empower students from a young age is really important as well. So yes, we'd like you to obviously bear in mind that primary schools are very much in need, especially in a post-COVID world. Next slide, please, Lauren.
I think this one's me. Thank you very much, Enya. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about governor responsibilities and get into the nitty-gritty of what the role is all about. And broadly speaking, the governor role can be divided into kind of three key elements: so strategy, financial management, and creating robust accountability. So the strategy element is really about ensuring that there is a clarity of vision, ethos, and strategic direction of the school. So working collaboratively with the school's senior leadership to kind of set the aims and objectives, formulate policies, and set targets. In the financial management aspect, you're essentially there to oversee the financial management of the school and ensure that its money and public money is being well spent and appropriately accounted for as well. And then in terms of creating robust accountability, you're there, as Enya said before, to kind of support and challenge the school's leadership team to ensure that the school's aims and objectives are achieved, and that the standard of education is high for all pupils. So to go into a little bit more detail about strategy, as a governor, you're going to play a key role in setting the strategy for the school. So you're there to help the head and the senior leadership team to think about how that's going to build into all areas of school life and with all stakeholders at the school, so staff, parents, pupils. So you're thinking about things like, is the vision ambitious for every child? And what is actually in place to make that strategy happen? So it's not just about having these visions and values, but also actually making sure that there's things in place to make those things a reality. If the school has a clear vision, that is clearly important and clearly the blueprint for the success of the school and the success of the individual children within that school as well. And it's making sure that, as I said before, you've got the buy-in of a variety of stakeholders. So that can be the teaching staff, the other staff, non-teaching staff, and parents as well, and making sure that you've got the buy-in of all stakeholders. You'd also be involved in things like policy development and agreeing the school development plan. And I think it's important to note that all of these areas require a really broad range of skills and expertise. There isn't kind of one skill set that a school needs in order to be able to make a kind of a strategy and a vision a reality. It needs a variety of people with a variety of work and life experiences to be able to make this work. So, you know, yes, great, an educationalist might be able to bring skills and experience around curriculum to the table, and somebody with finance experience might be able to bring their perspective to the table, but it isn't one skill set that's really going to make this a reality. In terms of financial management, it's important to note that governors don't set the budget for a school, so that the school will kind of have a budget, but you will be there to kind of oversee it. And ultimately ensure that the money is being spent in line with that strategic vision. So the level of responsibility that you would have as a governor on a governing board will differ from school to school depending on the structure. But you're really there to make sure that within the responsibility that you have, that the money is being well spent. I think it's interesting to note the percentage of money or the percentage of the budget that is spent on staffing. So we've got three figures on the screen in front of us: 50%, 67% and 75%. So I don't know if anybody wants to make any guesses in the Q&A about what percentage of the budget you think is spent on staffing. But the answer is 75%. So as we can tell, that's a really large proportion of the school budget goes on to staffing, as it should. School staff are a really vital resource and vital to making education work. But it does put into perspective kind of how important it is to manage the remaining funds to make sure that everything else that needs to be achieved within a school can be achieved. If we think that a primary school might have a budget of £1 million, in this scenario, that leaves £250,000 less for everything that isn't spending on staff salaries. So it really does need to be spent wisely, and that really needs a governing board to kind of check that it's being well spent to make sure that happens. And then finally, creating robust accountability. So as a governor, part of your role is to monitor and evaluate. And to be effective in that, I think one of the most important skills that a governor needs to have is the ability to ask questions, and to do so in both that kind of support and challenge way. You know, you're doing it in a diplomatic way. You're not there to only provide challenge, but to make sure you're asking the right questions, and able to analyse all of the information that's available. And being able to kind of provide that support and challenge to the head and the other senior leaders is a really, really key part of being a governor. A good example of how you will do this is in analysing progress and attainment data. So you'll examine how different groups within the school are progressing and what's in place to support children from various backgrounds. So, for example, there might be children with special educational needs or children with English as an additional language. And by discussing with the board, you can really understand what the data means, and how that affects each child, to make sure that certain groups or certain children aren't falling through the gaps when something could be put in place to help them to achieve. Another way of looking at the kind of accountability aspect of the role is to break it down into watchdog, mediator and champion. So as a watchdog, you're there to make sure that the right questions are being asked, seek evidence to back up statements that are being made. You're not there just accepting everything, but kind of drilling down a little bit further to make sure that there's really robust reasoning in place for all the decisions that are being made. As a mediator, you're there to juggle the needs of a variety of stakeholders. So you're balancing things like the budget against the need of pupils, against the needs of staff as well, and making sure that all of those things are taken into consideration and juggled. But you're also going to be handling a variety of opinions sat around the table as well, and kind of finding ways forward as a governing board to make sure that you can come to consensus on decisions and take things forward in a productive way. And lastly, it's really vital to be a champion. And this is probably, one of the really great elements of being a governor, is that you're there to celebrate the successes of the school and make sure that progress is recognised. And I think it's really important as a volunteer to be, passionate about the schools that you're volunteering for. And what I would say is, as somebody who speaks to many governors, time and time again, that is what people say. They'll tell us how proud they are of the school that they're a governor at. So being that champion, celebrating the school's successes is both important, but also a rewarding part of the role as well. Just moving on briefly to look at kind of some of the different roles that there are on the governing board. You'll see on the screen in front of you, there's quite a few different roles on here, and sometimes that can be a little bit confusing if you're not already aware of governance and you think, oh, I don't know what all these different things mean. Ultimately, governors are there to ask questions and serve the needs of the school and ensure that they're driving school improvement. So regardless of whether you're a parent governor or you're a community or co-opted governor, ultimately the core reason for the role is the same. But there will be people there who have been appointed by a different means. So a parent governor will be from the parent community of the school and will be voted on that way. A foundation governor, if it's at a faith school, that will be somebody who is appointed, who is a member of that particular faith and is appointed that way. And then a local authority governor will be if the school is a school that's maintained by the local authority, they will be appointed by the local authority. But across those three different roles, you're still ultimately there to drive school improvement, to be asking questions and kind of providing that support and challenge. That doesn't differ. Most schools will also have the head teacher, who is a board member as well, sitting there in their capacity as the head. And all boards should have a chair, so they're there to obviously make sure that the meetings are productive and moving forward, and kind of heading up the governing body. And they may also have a vice chair to support them as well. And then the clerk, that is a role that isn't voted on, and clerks don't have voting rights, but they're there to ensure that minutes are taken, that meeting invitations are sent out, and to ensure that the business of the governing body moves forward. So they have a really important role on the administrative side of things. But regardless of what type of governor you are eventually appointed as, the core aim of your role is the same. And I think something that is just worth noting is, generally speaking, at Governors for Schools, we're most likely to help people to become community governors or local authority governors, and occasionally foundation governors as well. But that's not to say that that's just the roles that we're most likely to help people to be appointed to. And I believe I am handing over to you, Enya.
Lovely, thank you very much. So remote governance is actually something that's quite new, and I believe used a lot more often and a lot more frequently now post-COVID, especially due to lockdown and schools closing. So at Governors for Schools, we believe that a blended governing approach is really important for the diversity and equality and inclusivity of all governing boards. So, potentially remote governance allows people who potentially live in cities with more skills and a really good professional career to help schools in more rural areas. For example, obviously I manage Wales and the southwest, so obviously some of those schools are very rural, and the quality of candidates is really important for the progression of that school, and sometimes it can be really hard to recruit. So by allowing somebody who lives elsewhere to participate remotely can be very beneficial to both parties. So a remote governor is obviously what it says on the tin. They do it remotely, so sometimes they may ask you to attend one meeting in person in like a year or so, but it is obviously dependent from school to school. Each school has a different preference or structure, but essentially remote governance allows you to do it from the comfort of your home and give your skills to an area in need. So it's a model of school governance that allows for at least a minority of board members to attend meetings remotely, and obviously COVID-19, changing business practices and children's access to schools and everything has caused us to question, how do we move forward in a very technological era now? How do we move forward to tackle diversity and skill shortages and make sure that schools, especially in rural areas, have access to the skilled professionals that they need on their boards? So, as Lauren said earlier, many boards are looking for a particular skill set, and we try and match them up as best as possible. And in some areas, volunteers with this skill are very hard to come by. So by ensuring that we include remote governance and enable schools to choose remote governance as a way forward is really important. And it just allows that the board is experienced, varied and diverse, which then is great because it represents the student body, which is great. So sorry. Lovely. As Lauren said, when talking through the many different types of governor roles, essentially they are all the same. So the remote governor will still be a champion, still ask questions, and still be there through a screen to make sure that everything is being moved forward. So it's the exact same as a local governor. The only fact is that potentially the remote governor may not know a lot about the local area and the issues impacting that area, like a community or local authority governor would. But if you're interested in finding out more about this, you can speak to either of us at the end as well. Lovely. You've already moved to the next slide. Thank you, Lauren. So time commitment. So based on feedback from our volunteers and studies that we've done, the average governor takes between 6 and 8 hours per month on their governing role. So this can obviously vary depending on which role you have. So a chair may have a lot more responsibility, but most boards will meet once every half term. So I think some schools can meet upwards of 2 to 3 times per term. So you also need to factor in time to prepare for the meetings, such as looking back at previous minutes, actions, looking at reports, budgets, potential Ofsted reports that have come through since the last meeting, looking back on the findings, that you can go to that meeting fully prepared and with ideas and suggestions and questions on how the school can proceed, as well as to give compliments and celebrate the achievements that the school have had as well. So term of office, it's usually 4 years, so it's obviously important to consider whether you're moving or potentially your job is changing and you might have to relocate. It's important to consider this before applying to become a governor. So it is a long-term role. Obviously, it's not set in stone. If you do have circumstances change, then that happens, and that's okay. And we can also place you in another school. So I've had a volunteer recently who was just appointed and then sadly has had to relocate because of work. But I've managed to find them a new position so they can still help a school in their new area, which is really great. So it can take a while to get to know the school and start to see an impact that they're having. So it's important that in the volunteer role, even if your circumstances do change, you can resign and move forward with that. And I believe we actually discussed this yesterday, that some governors can do up to 4 terms. Is that right, Lauren?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think the general guidance is that yes, you can absolutely take on another governing role, an additional term of office, if you're voted on to do so. But there is some guidance around maybe not staying in the same school for kind of 20 odd years,
yeah.
And at some point stepping aside and letting somebody else bring their perspective to the table.
Great, yeah. Thank you. Lovely. So travel. So when you apply, we have a very easy system of literally allowing us all of your access to travel, whether you have a car, bus, whether you are an avid walker or anything like that, and that enables us to match you with a school as close as possible depending on your travel requirements. You can also set it to how far you are willing to travel. So for example, if you want a primary school within 10 minutes of your house, you may be waiting longer than if you're happy to travel 30 to 40 minutes. And obviously in London and other large cities, you can also obviously travel a bit further, and that may be helpful for your skills development as well as helping schools in more rural areas outside of the city. If we don't have any local vacancies, we do actually do school engagement and reach out to schools in your local area to see if they do have anything coming up as well. So the application allows you to put a preference of school If, for example, you're interested in the school that your children have been to, or you have a strong community link to, we can go and do some engagement with them and see if they have any opportunities arising. Lovely. So liability. So talk a little bit about liability. So when you join the governing board, you are seen as a collective identity that supports the school. So any decisions or strategic oversight that you provide is seen as a collective. There's a shared liability. So obviously you're not on your own. You're sharing it with other skilled professionals who have all come together to give back to that school and the community. So what that means is if the board was found to be not supporting the school sufficiently, or letting the school down, or maybe not holding the school accountable, it's likely the whole board may be dismissed if they are found to be jointly liable for the failure. So there can be some misconceptions around personal liability, and the only way a governor can be found personally liable is if they were found to have acted criminally, for example, being negligent or fraudulent in their actions on the board. So our advice and guidance is for you to just act with, genuine integrity, be honest with your intentions and motives, and be a genuine champion for the interest of the school and the safeguarding of the students, to make sure that progress is taking place to really help them achieve their educational, the highest educational level possible. So while there are potentially financial losses or debt from the school because of poor financial oversight, then often they may have insurance policies to cover that money. So as a governor, you will not be personally liable for the debts of the school. We do actually have an FAQ section on our website to learn more about liability, if that's something you may be particularly concerned or worried about before taking on the role. So feel free to have a look at that. It can be very helpful. Next slide, please. Lovely. So develop transferable skills. So becoming a school governor, obviously, as Lauren and I have said, it offers you a wealth of opportunities and you can benefit both professionally and personally. So as we've explored in some previous slides, the governor role offers you the opportunity to develop experience across a range of skills that you may not otherwise undertake in your professional career. Our professional development research has found that by undertaking a governor role, you increase your confidence, your performance is enhanced in the workplace, and we've reported growth in preparation, flexibility, agility, analysing performance data and KPIs, looking at finances and budgets and the value for money, which then you can obviously, is great skills to be able to take back into your workplace as well. You gain board experience, so this is obviously very beneficial, and it's a transferable skill which again you can take back to your professional workplace. So by participating in board level decision making, as well as having the opportunity to network and collaborate with others in your community who may have the complete opposite experience to you professionally, career wise, but that you all have the main aim of coming together to help the school. And it broadens your perspective, being able to meet other people, learning about their backgrounds and what they offer to the school as well. It's an opportunity to give back, as we've said. It's you can help the most deprived children, children especially, as Lauren said, who are special educational needs, children who have English as a second language and other barriers that other children may not have in the education sector. So it's being able to give back and be a true advocate for those students. So that's the community aspect of it. So everyone here has a unique skill set to offer to a local governing board. That might be finance or HR, fundraising, education, knowledge, mental health, safeguarding, anything like health and safety of a site, anything like that. And schools are crying out for these skills from committed volunteers. So wherever your skills lie, whether they're broad or very concise to one specific sector, you'll have the opportunity to utilise them and give back to your community, as well as take back to your professional career. And as well as this, obviously, the main, probably most important thing is that you're improving educational standards. So you are impacting the education of hundreds, if not thousands, of children during your term as a governor. And those children will hopefully have a better experience of learning, higher aspirations, and improved life chances because of your impact on the board and by holding the school accountable. Next slide, please. Sorry. Lovely, thank you. Amazing. So yes, we do more than just place you in a school. So we want to ensure that you are learning as quickly as possible and are feeling confident before you undertake any role. So as Lauren said earlier, we help you after your appointment as well. So we offer lots of training, e-learning, webinars, but we also have partnerships with the Key and Governor Hub, and they have some amazing resources as well as a lot of blogs and research pieces that can be really insightful, especially for the future of governance and specific issues that are impacting students today, especially in a post-COVID world. So we have access to free training support and high quality e-learning modules, which are all free for you to use for 12 months. And obviously you can access the monthly webinar series to keep up to date with all of the latest thinking and fundamentals of governance as well.
I think, is it over to me now, Enya?
I think so, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So in terms of sort of the process, so hopefully you've listened to this and you've thought, yes, this is something that I want to undertake. I'd like to become a governor. So the first thing to do would be to visit our website and to complete the online profile. It doesn't take a huge amount of time. There's information, we collect information essentially on what your preferences are and where you're located. We ask you for a personal statement, essentially explaining why you want to become a governor, what your motivations are, and then we have a skills audit as well, so that we can quite easily see where your skills lie to be able to then match you to the best opportunity for you. I'd encourage you to do, we've got an induction e-learning on our website, so I'd encourage you to do that. It doesn't have to be before you apply at all, but it's just something that can be really useful for helping you to feel really confident that you know what you're undertaking before you are appointed. And then once you've made that application, you'll be appointed to a partnerships manager, and that person will be somebody who oversees the area that you live in, and their responsibility will be to help you match you to a really good opportunity, and then to be on hand throughout the process. So they'll introduce you to a school, but they'll also be on hand to answer questions and guide you through the process, make sure that things are moving forward. So it's really, I think, hopefully really reassuring to know that you'll have somebody there throughout the process to help you to find the best fit opportunity for you. It can take a little while for the whole process to be completed, to find your position, to make introductions with the school, but we'll be there to make sure that you're in the loop and you know what's going on, and you have some expectations around how long it's going to take. Yeah, I think that's it, the bulk of our session today. As I said, you can apply online via our website, but if you still have some more questions, there's still some more things that you want to look into. As I said, the introduction e-learning is a really great place to start, and there's also lots more information on our website, including an FAQ. But as you have joined us here today, you also get the benefit of the Q&A. So I can see that there is at least one question in the Q&A now, so we'll head over to that, and if you also have any other questions, please do type them in the Q&A, because we can get to those straight away, and make sure that you leave this session with all of your questions answered. So Enya, do you just want to kind of read out the questions to me, and I will give them a go at answering.
Lovely. So Boyd Roberts has asked, what skills are in short supply in appointing governors?
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, that's a really great question. The answer to some extent is it does depend on the area. So some areas will have maybe more difficulty in finding people with financial skills, and other areas will maybe need, other schools might need somebody with HR or law experience. So it does depend on the school and the area, but broadly speaking, some of the skills that schools will most often tell us they're looking for are things like HR and finance. But ultimately, what schools really tell us that they need the most is more skilled and committed people to support them. Across the UK, there are thousands upon, or England and Wales, there are thousands upon thousands of governor vacancies currently. Just at Governors for Schools, we have 5,000 registered with us. So there is a real shortage of governors. And whilst, yes, certain boards might be looking for a specific skill set, there are also a lot of schools that just need somebody who's committed to the role, who's willing to learn and who's passionate about supporting education, to bring their perspective and to bring their time to be able to support the school. So whilst, yes, certain skill sets are maybe in particularly high demand, I would say if you're not from that particular professional background, do not let that be a barrier, because we really can do need a lot more people to apply to become governors, and we will be able to find you a school that will make use of your current skill set. We have no concerns about that. Are there any other questions?
Lovely. And yes, we have quite a few now. So how visible are governors to the school community, and what sort of engagement would you have with children and parents?
That's a really good question. I think it will, again, vary from school to school. And I think if you apply to become a governor, I would encourage that to be a question that you ask. If we were to match you with the school and you have a meeting with the chair or the head, either online or face to face, that's a really good question to ask, because I think it's important to kind of set that expectation and to know. But we do, I think a good governor or a good governing board would expect to have some presence within the school and to have some kind of visibility within the school. I think that's a good thing for a governing board to aspire to, because you are there making decisions and asking questions and holding the school to accountability. And I think it is important that there is some visibility there. And there are often opportunities to get involved with the school community, whether it's attending a sports day or school plays, or an awards ceremony. There's many different ways that you can kind of be a champion and an advocate for the school. But as I said, it's something to ask probably at this level where you are connected with the school, to find out what their expectations are as a governing board, but also for you as an individual, whether that's something that they're looking for as well. Lovely. Oh, Enya, you're on mute.
Sorry. If the school gets a bad Ofsted report, what is the role of the board in responding to that?
So yeah, definitely this is something that a governing board would be expected to be involved with, and they are also involved at the Ofsted stage. So looking and making sure that the board itself is a strong board that is actually serving its purpose is something that Ofsted would look at. And then of course, with the governing board being responsible for kind of like the oversight of strategy, policy, finances, the governing board would be responsible, of course, in collaboration with the senior leadership team, not solely, and the current head teacher, etc., and the school community, but looking at what can be actioned, what can be addressed, and what has led to a negative Ofsted report. So, just to reiterate, it is at that strategic level. It's not at the operational level, but the senior leadership team can provide the information, can present, for example, a policy or a strategy for remedying some of the issues, and then the board will be there to oversee that and to ensure that the strategy that's put in place is going to remedy the issues and is appropriate. So hopefully that answers the question. But yes, absolutely, the governing body would be involved in that. Just something to add there is, obviously, if as Enya mentioned around liability, if the governing body was seen to be a big part of why the school got a bad Ofsted report, that something like that might have implications for the makeup of the current governing body as well.
Lovely. And the next question, so does remote governance mean that I can support any school in the UK whilst living in London?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are based in London, where we have kind of a high volume of volunteers, and you were looking to potentially support a school in another part of the country, where a school has indicated to us that they're also open to remote governance, and we could absolutely look at matching you with a school elsewhere in the country. And if you had a particular connection to another part of the country, you were I don't know, grew up in another part of the country and you maybe wanted to support a school there, but realistically couldn't travel there for governing board meetings, you could still absolutely support a school elsewhere. Equally, if you've got a specific skill set that a school in another part of the country might be looking for, then that's something you could do. So in short, the answer is yes, where a school has told us that they are open to that sort of governance.
Wonderful, thank you. And this one's a very interesting one and will be very beneficial to this attendee. So the opportunity, oh wait, hold on, it's just disappeared, 2 seconds. There we go. I'm speaking to a school this afternoon about a governor role, and this is my first one. Although I'm currently a charity trustee, I don't have any education experience, but I do hope that the governance experience at the charity might help. Is there anything I should try to emphasise today in my call with the school and about the transferability of my trustee experience?
Brilliant, thank you. Yes, I think to become a governor, a school governor, you do not have to have education experience to be a good governor. What you do need to have is what we've spoken about before, is commitment to the role and also a willingness to learn as well. So there are, lots of acronyms and educational policy and things like that over the course of your time as a governor, you will get to grips with more. But going into the role, it isn't a prerequisite at all. Occasionally, from time to time, the school might specifically be looking for a governor who has a good degree of educational experience, but often that isn't a prerequisite. And hopefully, before you having the meeting with the school, they are already aware of where your skill set lies, and it's probably the case that they are looking for somebody with your particular skill set, and they don't need somebody who has prior educational experience. So I think you can absolutely talk about your experience as a trustee. There's a lot of transferable skills in terms of oversight, financial accountability, asking pertinent questions, and providing support and challenge, and thinking strategically. So you've got lots there. And I think any other skills that you might have through your professional career as well are useful to highlight. And I think, also just emphasising your commitment to the role, your commitment to supporting education, and your willingness to learn. And on that point, I would also just direct you to our website as well. We have a learning, training and resources section, which has e-learning and webinars. And I think maybe even the introduction to governance e-learning module, not necessarily before your meeting today, but if you show a commitment to undertaking those sorts of things, that will show that you are willing to learn. But yeah, you don't need to be an education expert.
Amazing, thank you. So the next question, how big are school boards and what's the range of sizes?
So I believe that the usual size would be between about 10 and 15 people sat on a governing board. So that will be, as we discussed earlier, some parent governors, some staff governors, including the head teacher, and other members of staff from the school. And then you will have some co-opted or community governors, a few of those, potentially a local authority governor if it's a local authority school, and potentially a couple of foundation governors as well if it's a faith school. But I think 10 to 15 is the kind of the general figure. I can't remember off the top of my head what's the minimum amount to be able to function as a board. But yeah, you obviously there's a sort of an optimum amount of people that you want sat around the table to make sure you're getting that breadth of skills, breadth of experience and opinion, but also without having so many people that you can't actually move forward with any decisions as well.
Wonderful, thank you, Laura. We have one more question. So the opportunities nearby me are often looking for chair roles, which worries me that none of the existing governors want to move up to become a chair. Do school governing boards often struggle to persuade someone to take on the chair role, and how much representation work is involved as a chair? That's a really good question.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say what the reason for there being a lot of chair roles or chair vacancies available in a given area. It could be that quite a lot of the current governing board, are people with jobs that they don't feel they can commit the extra time that the chair role entails. So it's not necessarily that they wouldn't, they don't want to take on the role. It's just that it's not practicably possible for them, and it wouldn't be the right decision for them. So I think it's probably something that would be worth discussing. You know, if you were going for a position at a school, and finding out a little bit more to see if, you know, what the barriers are there. It might also be that they've got a relatively, you know, inexperienced board. It might be that the majority of the people sat there have only been governors for a couple of years. So there can be lots of different reasons that don't necessarily mean, you know, that aren't necessarily very worrying, that just mean that there are a lot of chair positions. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that the chair role is a bigger undertaking. It is a bigger time commitment than the other governor positions, and that might also play a factor in it as well. So it's something that you can, you know, if it's a concern, you can discuss with the school. Hopefully you'll be speaking with the head teacher, and hopefully they would be honest about the reasons. If you have any concerns around, okay, is this school a good fit for me? Am I undertaking more than I realise? So, but I think there can be, yeah, a really broad range of reasons. But it is really good, you know, asking questions like that and being kind of cognizant and critical and aware of things is you know, what you as a governor will need to do. And I think it's good to do that in the appointment phases as well, and make sure you're asking questions to ensure it's a good fit at that stage. Oh, and I've just seen that another question has come in. So roughly how many hours does a chair role take per month? I don't have an answer to that, and I think it will depend. You know, if you've got a vice chair as to support in that role, and if there's a good degree of delegation across the board, then it, you know, then it might not be so much, but it's definitely more than, you know, the 6 to 7 hours that we would say that the governor role usually undertakes. We would definitely say that the chair role takes up more time than that. So I think that we've got to the end of the questions. So this session has been recorded, and we will circulate the recording around to everybody who signed up afterwards. In that email, you'll also have access, you know, you'll obviously be able to reply or to send an email if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask today, or that pops up later in the day. But I really hope that you will kind of consider going to the website, consider potentially applying. But if you've got any more questions or concerns or barriers, please do reach out to somebody at Governors for Schools, and we'd be really happy to kind of discuss in further detail, you know, particularly if you need a one-on-one conversation to kind of answer any kind of queries or concerns you might have. We'd be very happy to do that. Thank you so much for giving up some of your lunchtime today to come and join us. I really do hope it's been kind of informational and useful, and hopefully we'll be seeing some applications coming through as well. So I will leave it there, but have a fantastic afternoon, everybody. And as I said, we'll be sending you an email, and you'll be able to get in touch with us if you need to afterwards. Lovely. Okay. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.